Hi everyone! Just before we jump into the video, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to thank Paloma so much for not only coming on my channel. I say our channel because it kind of is yours as well, but obviously she talks to us about her role at Beyond Sjogren's, but aside from that, she does talk about her past health issues and how she healed from them. And also she talks about her ADHD and how she was gaslit by her psychiatrist. And these are not easy things to talk about. So I feel really honored that she felt comfortable and wanted to share that with us. I just really, really want to give her a big thank you for that. Also, if you don't know who Beyond Sjogren's are, Beyond Sjogren's is, the founder is Jeremy, who is a functional medicine practitioner, naturopath, nutritionist, and he has helped heal my Sjogren symptoms considerably, hugely. I will leave links to videos where I've interviewed him and he explains exactly who Beyond Sjogren's are, what they do. And Paloma works alongside Jeremy, and she is a health coach, and she will explain all that to us later. I think that's about it, apart from if you do notice that I seem a bit sedated at times. There will be times when my eyes will be just about closing. It was because I was. I'm on steroids at the moment, and maybe you can hear I'm a little bit shaky even now. And we did the interview yesterday, and I had the worst steroid reaction yesterday. So I was like this. And so I was drinking chamomile tea all day, and if you see me drinking from my mug, that is chamomile tea. So at one point I was like this because I needed to be. Without further ado, let's get on with the video. Please leave Paloma any questions, any comments, anything you like, and she will reply to those comments. Thank you so much for watching. Hi Paloma, thank you so much for coming on my channel.
Thank
How
you
are
for having me.
you? So I just thought maybe we could do an introduction of who you are, what you do, and people know Jeremy from Beyond Sjogren's very well. He's been on this channel a few times, but we've never had you here. And so I'd love people to get to know you, and you can tell us what your role is in Beyond Sjogren's, because it's quite an important one. And I'll just let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So my name is Paloma Miquel, and I'm a health coach at Beyond Sjogren's. And basically what I do is I help our clients implement the guidelines that Jeremy gives them. So for example, Jeremy will give guidelines on diet and on supplements, and sometimes lifestyle guidelines as well. And what I do is I meet with our clients weekly or bi-weekly, depending. But we meet and I help them break it down. So for example, imagine that Jeremy tells people, just as an example, you have to start eating lettuce, for example. So I will see how they can implement that into their life. And usually, obviously, there's not one guideline, there's many guidelines. So seeing how can they batch prep the food, how can they make it easier for themselves, especially if they are working, if they have kids, how can they how can we make the process easier for themselves?
I think that sometimes when you delivered everything, like, right, this is your protocol, this is what you do, then you need you to say, but this is how we're going to work it out so you can do it. So it's really works like you need both of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really useful. We do sometimes work with people that are, super motivated and they know how to implement everything.
Yeah.
But the point with Sjogren's is that a lot of people have brain fog, right? And fatigue.
Yeah.
So it's clients usually tell us that it's really useful to have that support where it's and I love giving that support as well because, well, we'll get into that later, but I have ADHD and I can relate to a lot of the struggles that our clients can go through in terms of like lack of focus, just everything, brain fog, meal planning, difficulties with just sitting down and being able to say, okay, what am I actually cooking? It's like so overwhelming, right?
and to be able to fit it all in, like there's a lot of different food sources and different
Yeah,
supplements, fit it all in. Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah,
A lot.
yeah. Like you're vital. Yeah, I wish that I was anyway, maybe next time I can do
Yeah,
the whole
we'll get
thing.
to that. And I think the other important point about this is that we want this to be a lifestyle change, right? Like the whole point of having an anti-inflammatory diet and all the other guidelines is that they are meant to be for the long term.
Yeah,
So by having that support, we can make sure that the changes will last for a long time. And that
yeah,
usually happens over time. So it's difficult to tell someone, okay, change your whole diet and your whole lifestyle
yeah,
in 1 month. That's like
yeah.
almost impossible. So
Yeah.
this helps to make sure that it's a long term,
It's manageable.
yeah, manageable.
Yeah. And it's not just one habit, there's lots.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would take a long time. I'm still working on it. I'm still, I'll go like very forward, then some steps back and then
Yeah.
reevaluate. It takes time.
It's a lot. What clients usually tell us they found the most useful is the support and the accountability, because we can tell them what to do, but a lot of people they go out and they forget and they live their lives. So when we come back to our sessions, they're like, "Oh, Paloma, we haven't met for 2 weeks and I went off track. And I went out for dinner and I skipped the diet. And after we have the session, they are feeling much better. They can get back on track." And they're like, that's what's usually the most useful, that it
Yeah.
helps them to keep the goal in mind and to keep going, basically.
Because you know that for me, I'd feel like I know I'm going to be talking to you in a week's time, so I better get myself
Yeah,
like in order.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think that it makes you think more about, hold on, what am I eating? Or if I have made like you say, somebody will say they went out for dinner and they ate all the wrong things, but then they can come back to you and you can say, that's okay, we'll take it from here and
Yeah,
restart.
exactly.
Yeah,
And always in a very compassionate, non-judgmental mode. So
yeah,
it's kind of like we're working together to solve this
yeah,
issue. It's a really collaborative approach. I'm never like judging. It's more like, okay, let's break this down. So you went out for dinner and you ate this thing. How did you feel about it? What led you to take those steps, and how can we change that so that you do stick with the diet, which helps you. It's always from the point of view of what is helping. So how can we help you help yourself,
it
basically?
makes me think because, like, for example, for me, I'm good when I'm at home and I make everything at home. And sometimes I will be good at prepping for going out. So if I'm out and if I'm going from one place to the other, and a lot of times the foods, I can't have gluten, I can't have
Yeah,
dairy, I can't have eggs. I want it to be healthy. I don't want it to be fried. It's so hard to
it's
find
really
food
hard.
like
Yeah.
just in a supermarket, even like a ready meal or something in the train station or something. And sometimes I'll really kick myself and say, you should have given yourself an hour yesterday and prepped, and then you wouldn't be in this situation today. And then I would, yeah, either eat the wrong foods or eat something that's unhealthy or skip that eating something. And I know that if I like had you, then again it would be accountability, and it would make me be more aware, I think. And also and you could give me suggestions of where could I find the time to
Yeah,
prep.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or like even websites that can help with like meal prepping or batch box deliveries, that we also give a lot of resources on that. So, or supermarket finds, that basically it's a lot, like we give a lot of
That's
resources
amazing. That's
and
so,
links.
yeah. So can I ask what made you get into more like alternative functional medicine and also Beyond Sjogren?
Yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to work helping others. And I moved from Spain to the UK when I was 18. I started studying psychology, which I thought was my passion at the time. But then I had a really stressful summer where I was working a lot and I had antibiotics, I think various rounds. I think I was on antibiotics for more than a month, which thinking back is like really crazy. It was a very powerful antibiotic. And so I had a really stressful summer. And after it, I had really strong IBS to the point that I couldn't function. I was going to the toilet several times a day. I didn't have a normal bowel movement for like more than a year. I actually thought I had Crohn's because I had all the symptoms of Crohn's. And I was super desperate because I couldn't lead a normal life. I always had to be close to a toilet.
Yeah.
And I was told by my GP that it was chronic, that it would never go away, that there was nothing I could do about it. And he gave me like an anti-motility, anti-diarrhea. Yeah, basically like a patch,
Really?
like a
And for you to
Band-Aid.
take that every day.
Yeah, and they told me, whenever you have loose bowels, take this.
Yeah.
And they didn't give me anything else. And at the time, I didn't know much about natural medicine, even though I was already thinking of different ways to approach this, because I'm a solutions-oriented person. So if someone gives me a problem, I'm like, I'm going to fix it no matter what. Like, I'm not giving up until I fix this. So I remember I spoke with a woman who used to have IBS, and she told me that she cured herself. And that was all I needed. She says she cured herself with like essential oils or whatever. I'm not too sure. Or like herbal remedies. I don't know. But that gave me all the hope I needed.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that hope is the most powerful thing, because it carried me, seeing that it was possible to cure my IBS, carried me all the way through, I started experimenting with diet and reading a lot and studies and lots of things.
Yeah.
And just knowing that it was possible was so powerful for me and gave me a lot of hope and to myself and a lot of optimism. I also had a lot of mental health issues, so everything was mixed together. So I started experimenting with diet, and I took some supplements. And
Do you think the mental health affected your stomach? Do you think it was part of it? Yeah.
And part of improving my IBS was to get my mental health sorted in a way. I think I went to a psychologist for a short period of time, but I didn't have the money at the time to do it long term. So I just figured out everything by myself. So
but you did your own research,
I did a lot of research, and that, plus having lots of chronic yeast infections, which I'm sure lots of women will be able to relate to, and also being told by the doctor, just being given these, pessaries and stuff like that. I spent more than 100 pounds on stuff. I had a yeast infection for longer than a year, I think it was.
Really? That nothing would help it?
Nothing would help it, and I was so desperate as well. So I've always had lots of like chronic infections that lasted for longer than a year, and they wouldn't go away, and the doctors just gave me like Band-Aid solutions. So the IBS plus the chronic yeast infections plus other stuff, it just made me look for alternatives. And I solved all of these issues through natural means, through balancing my biome, my microbiome, through balancing my mental health, through stress management, through diet. And that solved everything. And I haven't had any of these issues for many years. But
and they were probably giving you more antibiotics and things that were making the microbiome and everything worse.
Exactly.
And the yeast infections.
Because if you have a yeast infection, they give you the antifungal cream, pessaries, etc. And then that makes the bacteria go completely off the charts. The bad bacteria thrive. So then you have to take antibiotics for the bacteria, or an antibiotic cream or something like that. And that makes the yeast come back. And it was just a back and forth. And
ridiculous. Well done.
So it was, I mean, I know compared to Sjogren's, this is like really small, and I'm thankful that I managed to.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not. I mean, having stomach issues and constant infections and all sorts of things, it's not nice at all. I don't think you can compare. Everything is relative, and that does not sound like fun at all.
No, it wasn't.
And not good for your body. The way the doctors dealt with it was not helping you whatsoever.
Sorry, it's I don't know. I always feel like I have a lot of respect for Sjogren's because I can see how much people are suffering. So it always makes, basically I respect it. So I don't want to be like, oh, woe me kind of thing.
No.
But I'm sure a lot of women with Sjogren's can relate as well to the yeast infections, and and the digestive issues as well. It's a common It's quite common.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. These are all things that people with Sjogren's do deal with. I've heard. I actually haven't had yeast infections since I've been diagnosed with Sjogren's, but I used to get them. So maybe it is, I don't know. But definitely stomach issues were a thing. I'm fine with it all now. I mean, I didn't really have that much, yeah, a little bit. Like I actually had more like constipation more than the other. And I think it was down to Jeremy's, yeah, protocol that my stomach just is so much better. It's just that it just seems normal, like functioning and everything. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, those gosh, yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's been amazing.
So all of this made me realize the power of just trying natural things first instead of going for the strongest medication first, like the conventional medicine system does. Let's try natural things first, and if that doesn't work, then we can consider other things. But to me, it doesn't make sense to treat a wound by
It's just masking it. It's not dealing with it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
like,
using
what's
band-aid
going on?
solutions. Yeah. And also, what is our body trying to tell us with this? So what is going underneath all of this? And sometimes there is, like trauma, like the root causes could be trauma. The root causes could be, a lack of self-love sometimes, or lack of self-love in the sense of like trying to do a lot all the time, like never stopping to rest, never stopping to give ourselves a break. But yeah, there could be lots of issues. But I've always been interested in learning about the body in that kind of holistic way. And also respecting the body because it's really intelligent. So seeing how we can support it to do what it does best. Our body is amazing at healing. It just needs the right tools. So that's something that I really believe, and I really have seen it work. So these experiences made me really trust in our body's natural ability to heal, given the right tool. So after I had that experience with the IBS, I realized that I love nutrition. I love learning about nutrition, everything to do with it. And as well as natural healing. So I did a master's in public health nutrition. And then I kind of also realized that nutrition from an academic setting, it's obviously very useful, but there's a lot of vested interest from like dairy companies or even soy companies. All the companies are making their own studies to show, and that goes for the whole of science in general, right? So I wanted to do something more natural, something that would teach me how the body, like I said, what are the tools to help the body heal from a more natural perspective. So that's when I started studying the health coach with CNM, the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London. And that was the health coach diploma. And I really loved it. It was really amazing. And I met Jeremy when I was looking for health coach courses that I wanted to do. I was filtering a few different courses, and I met him at a friend's New Year's Eve party. And he was like, "Oh, I'm a nutritional therapist. I studied with CNM." And I was like, "No way! I've never met anyone who studied nutritional therapy, let alone with CNM, which is the the naturopathic college." And it just felt like fate to meet him. So we met, and he recommended me CNM. So then I went ahead and studied with CNM, which was a really good choice because they're really good. And he had Beyond Sjogren's. So when I finished the health coaching course, he was like, "Oh, do you want to try? We could use a health coach." And I love, like I said, I love helping in any way I can, but also Sjogren specifically. It seemed to me, like Jeremy says, that people with Sjogren's were not being helped. Like there's not many resources out there. There's not much support. There's not much, not much at all. And especially a lot of women with Sjogren's, they are dismissed by doctors. And I just really felt for them. I was like this is not right. Like I really wanted to help. So so it was kind of like a chance encounter.
Oh, wonderful. That's really lucky for us. That's beautiful. Yeah, I studied nutrition for a little while. I didn't go fully because it was expensive, and it was the tradition, what's it called? Like not functional.
The more like conventional nutrition.
Conventional.
Yeah.
And I only went up to a certain level because I couldn't afford to carry on with the course. So I became a certified weight management consultant.
Oh,
And
amazing.
yeah, and along the way, I, studied nutrition because I've always loved nutrition. But it was crazy. What is that? This is many, oh God, it's like 30 years, I don't know, 20 years ago. But it was the booklet that tells you how much nutrition, how much vitamins and minerals and things you need.
Mm.
I can't remember what the government booklet was.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was terrible. I was like, how can they say that this is the only like little amount of vitamins or minerals that we need or the foods? And at the time, I think the government was saying, get your 3 a day or 5 a day max,
Mm.
where we need a lot more than that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so I'd love to do a study somewhere like where you did.
Yeah,
So
it's fascinating.
yeah, it's really, really fascinating. So for someone who has ADHD, and you said that you enjoyed helping people with, or how do you do that? How does that work for you? And I know that you also had mentioned to me before um, about being gaslighted about your ADHD. Can you talk a little bit
Mm.
about that?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of started suspecting that I had ADHD when a good friend of mine got diagnosed, and she would tell me about her diagnosis, and I was like, no, I don't have that. And then one day she told me, Paloma, do you have systems for everything that you do? And what would happen if you didn't have those systems in place? And I would be like, I wouldn't function. Like if I don't wake up and I have these exact foods at this exact time, and I have this, like, and I don't have my organization system in place, and I haven't slept this amount of hours, and and the stars align, basically, I cannot focus. And even then, I have like whole days where I'm just like one thing to the next. My mind is having like a million thoughts at the same time. And that's when I started suspecting that maybe I had it. And then I thought about my sisters, who I don't think have ADHD. And from the age of 16 or 14, they were able to wake up at like 8 a.m. and start studying. And for me, it's like impossible. Like I would study from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. When I was at uni. I was just
Oh, wow.
awake all night because my brain just could not function like during the day, and just like really weird patterns. And I thought that was just because I was young and distracted. And then when I was older than 26, and I'm 28 now, I'm still having these issues. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like I don't think this is right. Like the people around me are not doing these things, and they are able to focus, and they are able to sit at their desk for like 8 hours. And obviously people struggle with focus, but for me it's like it's different. It's, I mean, obviously it's the ADHD diagnosis has a lot of things considered
Yeah,
into it. And I had this
yeah,
since I was a kid as well. I've always been like really rebellious, and lots of like at school, like never paying attention, always in my own world, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So I started suspecting I had ADHD, and I went to the psychiatrist here in Spain. And the first thing he asked me was, do you have a degree? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, you don't seem to have ADHD. I think you're an obsessive person. And I was like,
The one person?
obsessive?
Obsessive.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
mm.
he hadn't even asked me two questions, and he had already told me that I had like an obsessive disorder or something like that. He didn't even listen to what I had to say. And I started crying because to me it had taken a lot of courage to go and open up to someone and actually say, like, suddenly my life makes sense. Like suddenly everything makes sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and I started like piecing every puzzle of my life together, and
yeah,
everything for once. And also my family, there's a history of ADHD.
yeah,
They're not diagnosed, but when I knew what ADHD was, I was like, oh, that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
makes sense.
You don't
Um,
realize when you're younger and you're around it because you just think that's just how people are or that's just how
yeah,
it
you think it's
is.
normal.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you
yeah,
grow up and you see other families and other, ways of being, and you're like, okay, I think there is something different
Yeah.
about us.
Yeah, no, I know.
Neurospiciness that people say.
Yeah. After this horrible psychiatrist, or did you go to another one, or?
Yeah, I did my research before, so I was kind of, I was like, there is no way I don't have ADHD. It's just like I meet all the criteria, and I read
Yeah.
through the official criteria, and I was like,
Yes.
I meet every single point for
Wow.
the inattentive type. So then when I was in the consultation with the psychiatrist, I was crying, and he was completely dismissive of me. He was
Oh,
like
that's so.
ignoring my feelings completely, and just kind of, how paternalistic, that kind of like they are a parent, and they are not really
Yeah.
taking you into consideration. And
Yeah.
I kind of was familiar with that feeling because it's happened before at the doctors, but never to such an extent where
Yeah.
an actual psychiatrist is just ignoring my mental health breakdown there in his own clinic. So
Crazy.
it was like a crazy experience. And the problem is that he didn't even ask me. He didn't even try to hear to what I had to say. If he had listened to me and said, okay, you don't have ADHD, that would have been okay.
Yeah.
The thing is, he didn't even took the time to listen to me.
To ask the right questions. He just decided straight away that no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a weird experience. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to an ADHD specialist. So I paid for a private consultation with an ADHD specialist here in Spain, and we had a few sessions. And in one of the sessions, he spoke with my parents to ask me how I was as a kid. And even though my parents tried to make it seem like I was a good kid, I was like, you're always telling me how problematic I was as a child, and suddenly you are, suddenly I was an angel child. And they diagnosed me with ADHD in the end.
And so how has it been for you since you've been diagnosed? Are you on medication? Do you have any, is it all just knowing so that you know how you will structure your days? Or how does it work
Yeah,
now?
I struggle a lot with ADHD, I'm not gonna lie. I sometimes consider going on medication because I've heard that it can be really helpful. But at the same time, I'm just really concerned about what the side effects could be. So I'd say I am managing okay because I
Yeah.
am self-employed, working with
Yeah.
Jeremy. That
Yeah.
is also such a blessing for me to be able to have that freedom of organizing my time, and
Yeah.
just being able, I can work. For example, if one day I want to finish work later, I can do that. So I love
Yeah.
that I can work with how my brain is working rather
Yeah.
than force my brain to work in a certain pattern. So
Oh, wonderful. I think my daughter we pretty much think she has ADHD, and she's really only in the last couple of years, she's 33, and only in the last couple of years has she really looked at herself and thought, hold on, like you say, at school I was like this, I was always daydreaming, they said I couldn't do this and all that, and then also she'll want to do one thing and then go in another direction and all these kind of things. And she's waiting, because I mean I think it does cost a bit to see a proper good ADHD specialist. I think we're going to do that within the next few months. But I think just knowing that, hey, it's okay. This is what you have. So then it's kind of like giving you the okay. Like, I'm okay.
exactly.
This.
Yeah. For me, that was the biggest change in my diagnosis. That I could stop, being so harsh with myself. I still, I still push myself to be better. But before I was like, you're just being lazy. You're just, why are you so clumsy? Like all the time losing my patience with myself and not understanding why my body and my brain are working like this, or why do you have so much brain fog? Like, just being really harsh at myself. And the diagnosis allowed me to say like, okay, you have ADHD. Let's try and work around this. Let's see what works, and it's a much
Be
more
kinder to yourself as well.
yeah, exactly. And overall, not be so harsh at myself. It's still nothing really has changed in terms of my ADHD. Like I still have ADHD. It's not like my symptoms have suddenly disappeared, but now I can be more compassionate at myself. And also I've been reading books, I've been reading about supplements and diet, and it allows me access to more tools in that way.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I can work around it.
Yeah. And also, as far as people with Sjogren's, like you said before, who have brain fog and all these kind of things, so you totally understand what that's
I
like.
understand, yeah.
So you know, yeah, so that's good because you can then help people because you know, yeah, what's
Yeah,
going,
and
yeah,
of course, everyone has different levels of brain fog.
yeah,
But I am, when clients tell me about their symptoms, I can relate. Like on
yeah,
a bad ADHD day, it seems like that
yeah,
as well. A lot of the stuff I've learned to help with ADHD and habit
yeah,
change and all of that management
yeah.
also helps with Sjogren's.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been through a journey, haven't you? Like,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah.
yeah.
But what's been great is that, like you say, you're one of those people who will be like, right, I'm going to find a solution. There's hope, and I'm going to get it sorted. And along the way, you've done everything naturally. That has
Yeah, I try to. I still trusted doctors. I still would go to the doctor hoping and trusting that they would help me.
happened.
And time again, it didn't work. Obviously,
Yeah,
it works for things like if you have an injury, for
yeah,
example, they have helped me with that. So obviously, I
yeah,
still believe that doctors and medicines can be really useful, but it
yeah,
depends on the circumstance, it depends on how your body is able to cope with it.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so time and time again, I was let down by doctors. So that led me to have to look for
yeah,
alternatives, because
yeah.
otherwise I would still be having chronic yeast infections. I would still be having IBS. It's also super important, and that's something that we do with our clients as well. The education of knowing, I had to educate myself on just how does my body work? What is the actual good diet for our body? And if you have that education and that knowledge, it's so powerful. You can do so much, and it's a shame that we don't get taught this in schools, of what does your body actually need to heal, basically.
It's such a shame because so many diseases could just be avoided. We just know
Yeah.
it happen if we knew from the beginning, if we were told from the beginning. A lot of
Yeah.
things could have been prevented.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell your viewers, whoever is
Yeah,
watching this, that we do share a lot of information on our Facebook and our Instagram. We also have a private Facebook group where we share. It's private, but it's free. You can, if you search for Beyond Children's Natural Healing Strategies on Facebook, it should come up.
yeah.
And
I'll put all the links below, and I'm on that group, and it's really, really helpful. And I follow you on Instagram. And sorry, carry on. Yeah,
yeah. So we share lots of useful info. We also have lots of blog articles in our website that could be useful. And there we talk about diet recommendations. We talk a lot about lifestyle changes as well, and lifestyle recommendations. And we do actually have an upcoming course that we are preparing. So if you join our private Facebook group, we will put all updates there.
Oh,
Good.
wow. An
That's
upcoming course.
yeah.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
News
Yeah.
on Raha's channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you say how would we find out about this?
In the private Facebook group,
Oh, in the
we
Facebook group.
will post on our social media, but
Okay.
especially on the private Facebook group, we will talk about it. So
Yeah. Oh, great. I look forward to seeing that. And I do love, I mean, I see all your posts on Instagram, and then I'm not on Facebook as much. So whenever I go on Facebook to message my daughter or something, then I see your posts, and I always look at those as well. Um, but I do find that your posts on both what's great about them is that you're always coming out with all these different things, all this different information, and it's always like the last one. What is it called when your body temperature changes?
dysautonomia.
Yeah, and I've had that, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is interesting because I have heard other people with Sjogren's, one other person talk about it, and but nobody really talks about it. Nobody talks about these things, and so it's so great. And you're quite, even though it's an Instagram post, you're very thorough with things and all sorts of things, toxins, all sorts of things. So I recommend everybody to go on these social medias for
We
sure.
we try to make it useful. So
Yeah. and they're very nicely done as well. They're pretty at the same time.
Oh, thank you. The creativity, the ADHD
Yeah.
creativity
Oh,
helps with
that's what.
all the
Yeah.
ideas. Yeah, I get a lot of
Yeah.
ideas. So
Yeah.
what could be useful for people right now, and it just comes up with random stuff.
They're very good ideas, though. Yeah. No, I
Thank
love
you.
them. I do love them. I try to put them in my stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you shared them a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think they're important.
So Raha, should we talk about now? I'm gonna switch
Yeah.
seats.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
I'm gonna become the interviewer.
Okay.
And I would love to talk to you about the emotional implications of dealing with Sjogren's and mindset as well.
Okay.
Yeah, is that okay?